You just put a plate of hot food in front of you. The steam is rising into your face. You can smell it before you even take a bite. Maybe it's the crisp skin of a piece of chicken, or the soft warmth of a potato, or the rich, bubbling sauce on a pasta dish. Your mouth is already watering, a physical reaction you don't even have to think about. You pick up your fork, or maybe just your fingers, and you take that first bite. It's good. It's more than good. It's deeply satisfying, in a way that a bowl of raw ingredients on the counter could never be. This moment isn't just a meal. It's the end point of a biological revolution so profound, it literally rebuilt your body from the inside out. That warmth you feel spreading through you, that's the echo of a choice made nearly 2 million years ago. A choice so risky, so bizarre, that it shouldn't have worked. And if even one of our ancient ancestors had gotten it wrong, if that first experiment had gone badly, you would not be sitting here today. You wouldn't exist at all. Because for 99.9% of human history, there was no such thing as a hot meal. Go back before that revolution. You are not you yet. You are a predecessor, walking the savanna. You are hungry, always hungry. In front of you is your world. Tough, fibrous tubers dug from the hard ground. Roots that taste like bitter wood. A scavenged piece of meat, tough as leather. And crawling with things you'd rather not think about. Your teeth are strong. Your jaws are powerful, but they are fighting a losing battle. You spend hours, 5, 6, 7 hours every single day, just chewing. Your powerful jaw muscles are so large. They anchor to a ridge of bone running along the top of your skull. Your face is built like a nutcracker, designed for one thing, relentless grinding. And it's still not enough. You are expending colossal amounts of energy just to process the tiny amount of energy you manage to get out of your food. Your gut is enormous. A long, convoluted digestive factory that works day and night to break down these stubborn raw materials. It's so energy hungry that it's basically running a second brain inside your belly. And that is the bottleneck. With so much of your fuel going to power your chewing machinery and your digestion factory, there's precious little left over. Left over for what? For thought, for curiosity, for becoming something more. You are trapped in your own body's design, a brilliant adaptation for surviving on raw, wild food that also puts a hard ceiling on what you can ever be. Then, something shifts. It wasn't a recipe. It wasn't a craving for a better flavor. It was almost certainly an accident, a piece of meat or a root falling into the edges of a wildfire. And someone, driven by a desperation that overrode every instinct, picked it up. It was charred, ash-covered, strange. They ate it. And in that moment, everything changed, because what they discovered wasn't just a new way to eat. They stumbled upon a cheat code for biology itself. Cooking didn't just soften food. It performed a kind of alchemy, a predigestion outside the body, that unlocked secrets trapped inside plants and meat. It shattered tough cell walls, releasing stores of energy that were literally inaccessible before. It denatured proteins, unraveling their complex tangles into strands our bodies could easily absorb. It neutralized a host of toxins and parasites that made raw food a dangerous gamble. That first cooked bite was a key turning in a lock, and the door it opened led directly to you. Because your body today is the product of that discovery. You are a cooked ape. Look at your own face in the mirror. Run your fingers along your forehead. It's smooth. That massive crest of bone for anchoring giant jaw muscles? Gone. Your jaw is delicate. Your teeth are small. Your gut is remarkably short and efficient compared to our primate cousins. All that metabolic machinery, the industrial-strength chewers, the marathon digestion system, was ruthlessly downsized. It was rendered obsolete by an external technology, fire. The energy savings were astronomical. It was like a city tearing down a massive, coal-burning power plant in the center of town and replacing it with a clean, silent, hyper-efficient solar grid. All that surplus energy no longer needed to run the chewing and digesting factories, was suddenly available, and evolution invested it. It poured it into the most expensive organ you have, your brain. This is the trade-off written in your bones. The shrinking of your face and your gut financed the expansion of your mind. Cooking didn't just feed our ancestors. It built the modern human brain. It is the reason you can understand these words, plan for tomorrow, and feel that deep, wordless comfort from the steam of a hot meal. But here is where the story gets strange, and where the real mystery begins. Archaeologists have long searched for the smoking gun proof of the first cookout. They looked for the obvious signs: centralized hearths, stone circles, the charcoal remnants of a controlled fire. And for decades, The evidence pointed to a timeline starting around 400,000 to 300,000 years ago. It fit a neat story. Controlled fire leads to cooking leads to bigger brains. But then, they started finding things that didn't fit. Fragments of bone with cut marks. That only made sense if the animal was butchered after it was exposed to high heat. Microscopic traces of starch grains on ancient tools. Grains that had been swollen and gelatinized. A change that only happens with cooking. And the most puzzling clue of all, the fossil record of our own bodies. Because the anatomical shift, the shrinking of our guts, the lightening of our skulls, began happening much, much earlier. Over 1 million years earlier, something was freeing up that energy long before we had what looked like proper, permanent hearths. The evidence was screaming that the revolution happened, but the traditional archaeological signature for it was missing. This created a paradox. If cooking was the driver of our evolution, but we couldn't find the campfires, then what were we doing? Were we simply hanging around natural wildfires, waiting for them to do the work? Were we carrying smoldering embers for miles? The timing was all wrong. The body changes were sprinting ahead of the technology, and that's when a radical, almost heretical idea began to take shape. What if the very first step wasn't about controlling fire at all? What if it was about stealing it? And this changes everything, because if you can't make fire, but you can find it, your relationship to it is completely different. You are not a master. You are a scavenger, a thief. Your life becomes a desperate race against the clock, tethered to the whims of nature. Picture this new version of that ancient moment. You are not tending a cozy hearth. You are running. A lightning strike has set the grassland ablaze. The air is thick with smoke and panic. Every other animal is fleeing from the inferno, but you are watching. And when the fire moves on, leaving a landscape of smoldering embers and ash, you move in. You are not looking for warmth. You are looking for a miracle. You poke at the charred remains of a bush and find a tuber, now soft and sweet. You find the carcass of an animal caught in the blaze, its flesh transformed. This isn't cooking by design. It's scavenging the aftermath. And it would have been terrifying. Fire was the most destructive force in your world. To approach it, to use it, required a cognitive leap that's almost hard to fathom. It meant seeing chaos and thinking opportunity. It meant overriding the deepest, most hardwired instinct to flee, and instead, to approach, to experiment. This wasn't a single eureka moment. It was a slow, dangerous dance across generations, a species edging closer and closer to the thing that could kill it in seconds, lured by the undeniable payoff in its stomach. This fire-forging theory solves the paradox. It explains how our bodies could start evolving for cooked food, long before we see neat circles of stones in the archaeological record. You don't need a hearth to benefit from fire. You just need a wildfire and the courage to sift through its ashes. The energy windfall begins immediately. The evolutionary pressure shifts instantly. And once that taste of cooked food is in your biology, there's no going back. You are now on a relentless hunt, not just for food, but for the fire itself. Because the next logical step is the most precarious one, transport. If you can't make fire, but you need it more and more, you have to keep it. You become a curator of a living, breathing, dying ember. Imagine the stakes now. Your group has found a lightning-struck tree, a log still glowing at its core. This is your treasure, your future. You carefully extract a piece of this smoldering heartwood. You might cradle it in a shell, or a piece of bark, or a fold of damp leaves, and you begin to walk. Every breath of wind is a potential disaster. Every stumble could scatter your precious cargo into useless ash. You are carrying a tiny piece of the sun, and you have to keep it alive for hours, maybe days, until you find the next meal that needs it. You feed it with tinder, you nurse it. You take shifts watching it through the night. The first firekeepers weren't technicians. They were the most vigilant, anxious babysitters in history, protecting the single most important thing the group possessed. This phase leaves almost no trace for archaeologists. A carried ember doesn't build a hearth. It doesn't leave a permanent stain. It might leave a single, scattered charcoal fragment, where someone stopped to rest and blew on the coal to keep it alive. It is, by its very nature, invisible. And that's exactly why we've been missing it. But then, finally, comes control. The moment you go from keeping a found fire to truly making it your own. This is where the story gets physical again, and where we find our first tangible clues. Because making a fire from scratch, without metal or modern tools, is shockingly, brutally difficult. Think about the methods available. Friction, percussion. You're not just rubbing two sticks together. You're engaging in a full-body workout with a very low chance of success. The drill method, Spinning a hardwood stick against a softwood plank requires sustained, intense speed and downward pressure. Your arms scream. Your palms blister. You need perfect tinder, bone-dry, and finely prepared. One change in humidity, one clumsy move, and the precious dust you've ground out simply won't catch. The strike-a-rock method, using flint and pyrite to spark a shower of white-hot shavings into a nest of dried fungus, is just as finicky. These aren't simple life skills. They are elite, hard-won techniques. And this is where we find the first real evidence of the cognitive revolution fire demanded. Because to master firemaking, you need more than bravery. You need foresight. You need to plan multiple steps ahead. You must select and prepare specific materials before you need them. You need to understand cause and effect on a delayed timeline. This rock, struck this way, on this prepared bundle, will produce a coal, which I must then gently nurse into a flame. It's a chain of logic, a recipe. It is, in its purest form, proto-technology. Proto-technology, and archaeology has found hints of this cognitive leap, scattered like breadcrumbs leading us backward. At a site in South Africa called Wonderwork Cave, researchers found what appears to be the remnants of ash and burned bone, deep inside a cave, dating back over 1 million years. A natural wildfire doesn't wander into a deep cave. This was brought or kept. In Israel, at a site called Gesher Banat Yaakov, there's evidence of clustered burned flint tools from nearly 800,000 years ago. Not a single accident, but repeated, localized use of fire. The patterns suggest deliberate curation. But perhaps the most haunting evidence doesn't come from tools or ash. It comes from the very thing fire helped create, our own minds. The brain area that lights up when you plan a complex sequence of actions, when you imagine a future state and work backward to achieve it. That area would have been under intense evolutionary pressure. Firemaking was the ultimate training ground for the modern human mind. It taught us patience, precision, and cooperation. You couldn't easily make fire alone. Someone had to spin the drill, while another fed the tinder, and a third shielded it from the wind. It forced us to communicate, to coordinate, to trust. The fire didn't just warm our bodies. It forged the social bonds that would become the foundation of everything we built. And yet, for all this, the most profound change was happening in the dark, in the silence of the night. Because before fire, the sunset was a hard stop. Darkness was a solid wall. It meant 12 hours of utter vulnerability, huddled together, listening to the sounds of predators on the prowl. Your world shrank to the reach of your arms. Fire shattered that wall. It turned night from a prison into a space. For the first time, you had light after the sun was gone. You had a ring of safety, a flickering shield against the teeth and eyes in the dark. This did something extraordinary. It gave you time. Not daylight time, but stolen time. Time that no other creature on the planet had. Time that was quiet, and still, and strangely intimate. Around that fire, for the first time, you weren't just surviving the night. You were living through it. The work of the day was done. The chewing was done. Your belly was full of warm, easy energy. And in the flickering light, faces became more expressive. Shadows danced. The simple act of staring into the flames is hypnotic, conducive to a state of quiet reflection. What did you do with this new, silent bandwidth? You might have started to share sounds in a new way, not just alarm calls, but stories. You might have begun to trace shapes in the dirt with a stick. You might have just sat and wondered. This is the final, beautiful twist. The fire that changed your body also changed your experience of being alive. It created the first safe space for pure thought. The campfire became the first classroom, the first theater, the first conference room. The expansion of your brain wasn't just a metabolic accident. It was given the very space and time it needed to grow into its potential. The dark, which had been a boundary, became a canvas. And so, when you sit down tonight and feel that warmth from your plate rising into your face, you are feeling more than just heat. You are feeling the legacy of 1 million desperate choices. The scramble through the ashes, the agonizing carry of the ember, the blistered hands from the first successful spark, the long, silent watches of the night, guarding the flame that was guarding you. You are not just eating a cooked meal. You are tasting the result of humanity's first and greatest gamble. You are consuming the very reason you have a mind capable of appreciating its own history. The next time you light a stove with the flick of a switch, pause for a second. You are performing a magic trick that took 2 million years to learn. You are commanding a force that once terrified your ancestors, a force they had to steal from the sky, just to give you this single, comfortable moment. And it all started with a desperate, hungry creature standing in the ashes of a wildfire, deciding to taste the unknown. So the fire is kept. The night is tamed. The brain is growing. The story seems complete. But it's not. Because this revolution left a scar, a deep, biological memory that you still carry. It perfects everything about you, and it is the reason for your single, most universal, nightly frustration. Think about your own bed, right now. The moment your head hits the pillow in the dark, you close your eyes, and your mind doesn't shut down. It lights up. It races. It replays conversations from 10 years ago. It involves problems that don't exist. You stare at the ceiling, begging for sleep, while your brain is throwing a party for every anxiety you've ever had. We call this insomnia. We treat it like a disorder. But what if it's not a bug? What if it's the final, unchangeable legacy of that first stolen flame? Because before fire, the night wasn't for thinking. It was for surviving. In the pure, predator-filled dark, the smartest thing your brain could do was shut down. Conserve energy. Be silent. Be still. Be invisible. Deep, uninterrupted sleep wasn't a preference. It was a survival necessity. Your brain would flood with chemicals that pushed you into a coma-like state, because movement or sound could mean death. Fire rewrote that contract. Suddenly, the night was safe. More than safe, it was useful. Those extra hours of light were a windfall of time, but your ancient biology couldn't just evolve a new sleep schedule overnight. So a compromise was forged. Your sleep architecture fractured. Humans, out of all the primates, are the only ones who naturally segment their sleep. The pattern found in cultures without artificial light isn't 8 solid hours. It's 2 blocks of sleep, with a period of quiet wakefulness in between. You felt this. Waking up at 3 a.m., mind crystal clear, for no reason. In the modern world, we panic. We check our phones. We stress. But for hundreds of thousands of years, this was normal. This was the fire watch. This was the time when the person tending the flames, keeping them alive through the deepest dark, would also stare into the embers. And in that stillness, with the communal sleeping sounds around them, their brain would do something new. It would wander. It would connect distant ideas. It would remember and imagine. Your insomnia isn't a malfunction. It's an ancient, hard-coded shift schedule. That wakeful anxiety is the ghost of your ancestors' vigilance, the leftover circuitry that once kept the flame and the tribe alive. The quiet terror of 3 a.m. is the echo of listening for a hyena's laugh just beyond the firelight. Your brain, in those moments, isn't broken. It's reverting to its most sacred, old-world task, guarding the circle of light in a world of dark. It's just that now, the only thing left to guard is your own unresolved thoughts. And this leads to the final, beautiful trade-off. The same wakefulness that feels like a curse also created the space for your inner world. The fire watch was the birthplace of introspection. With the body safe and still, the mind could finally turn its immense processing power inward. It could contemplate the day. It could ponder the patterns of the stars above the smoke. It could imagine the spirit of the animal it ate. This quiet, wakeful rumination, this boredom by the fire, was the crucible for art, for religion, for complex language. The flame didn't just light the cave wall. It eventually illuminated the stories they would paint on it. So you are left with this dual inheritance. A body built for cooked food, a mind expanded by stolen time, and a sleep pattern forever split by the watch. You are a creature of the flame, through and through, and you prove it every single day in ways you've stopped noticing. That preference for food that's just warm? Not a taste. It's a biological mandate. Your gut expects it. Your digestive system primes itself for the pre-processed, broken-down molecules that only heat can provide. The comforting weight of a hot bowl in your hands on a cold day isn't just comfort. It's a deep memory of the first external source of heat that wasn't the sun. The way you automatically blow on a spoonful of soup before tasting it? That's not manners. It's a ritual older than language. You are testing the temperature of the transformation, just as they did. And the campfire. Even now, with all our technology, we are drawn to it. We pay for houses with fireplaces we don't need. We go camping to sit and stare at burning logs. We roast marshmallows we could easily microwave. Because in the flickering light, your brain recognizes its oldest, most formative classroom. The conversation softens. The stories flow easier. The faces across from you look more human. It is the original social network, and your neurons are still wired to sync up around its light. Which brings us back to you, right now, in your chair. The meal in front of you might be finished, or the memory of its warmth is still in your hands. Look at your own fingers. They are not the powerful, grasping hands of a primate built for constant foraging. They are delicate, precise. They are the hands of a tool user, a firekeeper, a storyteller who once traced shapes in the ash. The same hands that can type on a glass screen evolved to carefully nurse an ember in a piece of bark. Feel your own face again, your smooth forehead. That absence of bone is the space where your ancestors traded brute force for the ability to dream up the very concept of a future. They traded the power to crush roots for the power to imagine a harvest. Listen to the quiet of your own home, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint buzz of a light bulb. This is your eternal flame. It never goes out. You have mastered the fire so completely that you've forgotten it's even there. You command it with a flick, a click, a dial. You've bottled lightning in your walls. The most terrifying, godlike force in your ancestors' world is now your obedient servant, silent and unseen. And that is the quiet gut punch. The most profound legacy of that 2 million-year journey isn't the meal or the brain or the safety. It's the staggering, mundane peace of your present moment. You are sitting in a pool of stolen starlight, your belly full of predigested sunshine, your predators extinct or locked in zoos. With a mind capable of holding the entire epic in a single thought, you are living in a world built by the watchful, anxious 3 a.m. thoughts of people who stared into the flames and dared to imagine more. So tonight, when you turn off the last light and your head hits the pillow and the old wakefulness stirs, don't fight it. For a moment, don't reach for your phone. Just lie there in the dark and feel it. That isn't insomnia. That's your turn on the fire watch. You are the latest in an unbroken line of guardians, keeping a flame that has never gone out. You are not just eating the cooked food of your ancestors. You are living in the quiet, watchful mind they built for you. In the long, silent hours between the dark and the dawn,